talk about comic book professionals, which you should take lightly because they're anything but professional when it comes to interacting with fans. Notably, Dan Slott, who I'm going to be talking about in this video, who in a lot of ways is the reason that comic book pros have had this culture of telling fans they're garbage for the past few years. Dan Slott's kind of the guy that started it. He used to go, from what I understand, into comic book forums and kind of troll fans and treat fans like trash, and Marvel was fine with it, and it really kind of did, from what I understand, start this culture of comic book professionals being allowed to go around and say whatever they want, talk about whatever they want, and treat you however they want, which I think it's pretty undeniable that has had some effect on comic book sales. I don't know if you could say it's the majority of the reason why comic books are failing, but I do believe that there's probably quite a bit of people that have stopped buying comics because of the social media behavior that a lot of pros present. And I think Dan Slott is definitely a big factor when it comes to that. So I saw this, and I just laughed when I saw this article. Spider-Man comic writer serves trolls the ultimate takedown. If anyone has the right to an opinion on Spider-Man, it's legendary writer Dan Slott. But that didn't stop him from getting challenged on Twitter. Now, here's the thing. We're going to talk about this. This is such a puff piece by Screen Rant on him. All of comics media just puff pieces these people all day long, which I find funny. But Dan Slott, to call him a legendary Spider-Man writer, I don't know if I would go that far. Now, let me show you this first before we start talking about Dan Slott. So this is what happens here. Somebody said something to him on one of his many social media posts. Dan Slott sits on Twitter all day long. Notably, for the past 4 years, he's been having a one-sided conversation with Trump. He tweets at him every day, all day. I don't even think, let's be honest, Trump has no idea who Dan Slott is. But Dan Slott talks about him all day long. All day. Almost to the point where it's already kind of unhealthy to have TDS. It's like, if you're that upset about it, you should find something else to do. Maybe, channel some of your focus somewhere. Dan Slott sits there and just tweets all day long about politics, which probably affects the quality of his books. He's a very mediocre writer, to be honest, and I'm going to get into that. But here's the post that he wrote. Now, he doesn't give all the context here, by the way, but he just shares this. So somebody replied to him. He probably said something snooty, and this is what he said. I'm sure it got shared to oblivion because Dan Slott lives in a hug box. He probably, I know for a fact, actually, that he blockchains me and a few other notable people. There's probably over 100,000 people by now blocked by Dan Slott. But this is what somebody replied to him saying. We don't have the original tweet, but they say, okay, 1, your suggestions of jokes he should make has already been met plenty of times. 2, and this is just for my own curiosity's sake, but have you read a full series of Spider-Man comics or watched a full Spider-Man TV series? This is likely a post on a tweet thread that I'm going to talk about, actually, because I've been wanting to talk about it, to kind of go over Dan Slott, where Dan Slott said that Spider-Man should change the way he makes jokes. And this is what Dan Slott says in response. I've been the consulting producer on multiple years of a Spider-Man TV show. I've written and been a consultant on multiple best-selling Spider-Man video games. And I've written more issues of The Amazing Spider-Man than any other human who has walked on the surface of this earth. Okay? So he's really sticking it to that random user on Twitter, isn't he? Isn't he? Here's the thing. The appropriate response would have been for Dan Slott to do nothing, to just ignore this guy, mute him. And I don't think there's anything wrong with muting people I mean, you get I get on, you get like 200 notifications. You got this guy, this clown or whatever, saying this to him. Just mute him. That'd be the professional thing to do. But no, Dan Slott's got to own the troll. He's got to get on there and respond. Ha ha ha! Look at how condescending I'm being to this guy. Really telling him who I am. This guy doesn't know who Dan Slott is. Most people, Dan, don't know who you are. They don't know that you have written so many amazing Spider-Man issues. And here's what's funny about that. Dan Slott, he wrote Spider-Man for 10 years. He did. 10 years. 10 years of mediocre, mundane, boring Spider-Man. Why'd they keep him on there? Well, Spider-Man sells consistently. Why rock the boat? 10 years of Dan Slott, I'd say that's probably a lot of leadership issues too. Like, I would have taken him off. Like, it got really bad towards the end. There's some decent stuff Dan Slott has done, but here's the thing. Like, nobody sits down and really dissects Spider Island. You know, like some of this stuff, or Brand New Day. He'll always be remembered as the guy who took over after One More Day, where they broke up Mary Jane and Spider-Man. That was the JMS run, which, well, I don't remember if JMS wrote that or not, but that guy had a fantastic run. Even Spider-Verse, the comic book that led to the Fantastic movie, which didn't even really have any of the Spider-Verse elements in it other than the fact that a bunch of universe-hopping Spider-Men were in the movie. It didn't have Morbius or any of the totem stuff, which, by the way, was all mined and made by JMS. JMS had a fantastic Spider-Man run. You can say what you want about some of the stuff towards the end, but the whole stuff with like Aunt May discovering Peter Parker as Spider-Man, and a lot of the human elements, like Spider-Man working in a high school as a science teacher. Like, there was a really good stuff in that JMS run. And, you know, then that ended. Dan Slott took over. Like, there's no really good work that Dan Slott did that really sticks out. Like, I can think of so many really iconic Spider-Man stories from even the JMS run. Like, a lot of people are really kind of like iffy on the mystical Spider-Man stuff, like the totems and stuff like that. But just that story where Aunt May figures out, or, you know, she walks in on a battered and beaten Peter Parker who passed out in his Spider-Man costume, and her like trying to redeem, you know, always being nasty about Spider-Man. Or you go back to even the really, really great stories like the death of the Green Goblin and Gwen Stacy, that run. Like, there's nothing like that Dan Slott did, and he was on the book for 10 years. Nothing like that sticks out from Dan Slott. In fact, the only thing you could really say that does is the Superior Spider-Man, which I will say is a really good piece. I liked the Superior Spider-Man, but guess what? That was a story and a redemption arc for Dr. Octavius, not Peter Parker. There's really there's nothing that's going to stand the test of time with his work, in my opinion. I don't think any of it was really that good. Spider Island, not that great. Brand New Day, not that great. There's not really anything that sticks out and I think is really like held up as an iconic, really big piece of literature that's come from him and Spider-Man. And he wrote it for 10 years. And he's written more issues of Amazing Spider-Man than anyone else. And your legacy is a story about Dr. Octopus. It's kind of sad, Dan Slott. So I don't blame this guy for not knowing who you are. But he had to jump in and he had to get his 2 cents in there because he's Dan Slott, dang it. So what's funny is Dan Slott has had a humbling couple of years, by the way. Wrote Spider-Man for so long. Those books always had high sales, but here's the thing. Spider-Man has never lost those high sales. Whoever writes Spider-Man is going to have high sales. You know why? Because a lot of people just put it in their pull list and pick it up to collect it. They don't even read it. I've done that many times. I've got a bunch of Amazing Spider-Man issues right now that I need to read that I haven't even read. Once or twice, I just haven't even read them. because it's like a habit to pick up Amazing Spider-Man. It's kind of a problem that the book has, that people just buy it to buy it, and, you know, it doesn't really matter if it's good or not. Now, Dan Slott gets taken off Spider-Man. He goes to Fantastic Four, and he goes to this other book. Was it Fantastic Four and Iron Man? Sales drop. Like, he doesn't have that Spider-Man protection coating on him anymore, and the sales go down. That legendary writing status that Screen Rant gives him right here, legendary Spider-Man writer, perform the ultimate takedown, owning the regular people. Yeah, that's kind of shading. That's kind of like getting shaded off every sales month that comes out, because his books constantly go down in sales now, like they should have when he was a Spider-Man writer. And the only reason they didn't is because he was on The Amazing Spider-Man. So I've always found this funny, you know. And then he could say stuff like this. You know, he's allowed to say that he doesn't need your vote. Like, listen to this tweet. And I think I did a video on this. This administration is not on top of this emergency. They're ignoring and contradicting their own experts. People are dying. And he's golfing at his resort again and profiting off it. I'm not saying F you for voting for him. I'm saying F you if you vote for him again. Now, here's the problem with this tweet. I don't want to get political. If you don't like Trump, you don't like Trump. I'm not trying to change your mind on that. But here's the thing. This man is selling, at least at the moment, I think he's off Iron Man, but at the time was selling a Fantastic Four run and an Iron Man run. Okay, that's a large percentage of people who buy comics or potentially could buy comics, and now you're telling them, F you. That's fine behavior. You're allowed to do that if you're a comic book professional, okay? You know, depending on what your opinion on the man is or not, why don't you go work at a real job, Dan Slott, all right? And say that to a customer, they'd fire you. Okay, you're not supposed to talk to customers like that, which is kind of the thing. And Dan Slott's allowed to do that. Marvel doesn't care. Marvel's A-okay with that behavior, which they really shouldn't be, considering how bad comic sales are. You would think that you want everybody to buy your book, but you know, it's more about the message than the money over at Marvel and at DC Comics, and to be honest, the entire comic book industry. Though I think some of that behavior might be changing soon as comic industry outlets such as DC and Marvel begin to clamp down and tighten the belt. Because, well, I think now we have more of a reason not to employ people like this, especially when the numbers don't quite come in for their books. But I just find it funny that this kind of behavior is celebrated by the media and stuff. Okay, he's in here and really nasty to this person who didn't know who he was. Who, I'm going to be honest, most people buy books based on the characters that they love and really don't have any idea who's working in the book. Most casual, normie readers just want to read about Spider-Man or Wolverine or Captain America, and they don't give a damn who's making the book. But, you know, a lot of people just don't know who he is. And like I said, that goes to the fact that his stories don't really stand out and no one really cares about them. And I don't think there will ever be, in like 20 years, if we're lucky enough that we still get Spider-Man comic books, I don't think any of Dan Slott's work will be remembered, and there'll be no live action movies for it. He's just kind of a jerk. It's funny, this tweet that he's responding to, like, was a whole, like, moral tweet thread that Dan Slott made where he was, like, talking about how Spider-Man shouldn't make jokes on Kingpin for being fat, or, like, how like, making fat jokes about Dr. Octopus don't age very well. And he shouldn't do that. It's wrong. You need to think about the feelings of this. And that's why this guy came in and said, you know, hey, have you ever read a Spider-Man run? Like, this is what he does. He makes jokes. And then, you know, he had to come in and say, well, I'm the moral authority of Spider-Man. Yet nobody really fondly remembers anything you've ever written. Like I said, his best work is a story about Dr. Octopus. So anyway, that's pretty much it. What are your thoughts on this? Do you agree? Do you disagree? I'd like to hear what you guys have to say. Also, if you would, share the video, throw a like up, make sure you still subscribe. Subscribe if you're new, hit that notification bell, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace. Also, if you want to help support the channel, check out my Teespring store. There's a link in the description. You can find some merchandise in there that you might want to check out.